The moment she leaned toward the bench, smiled, and said, "Judge, when you can afford my shoes, then you can judge my choices," the entire courtroom knew something irreversible had just snapped, not in the judge, in her. The audience inhaled and never quite exhaled. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it, like she was flirting with a waiter, like the woman in the black robe was just another underpaid extra in the movie of her life. Vanessa Cross, billionaire lifestyle influencer, three-time magazine cover star, founder of the Cross Life brand, stood at the plaintiff's podium dressed like she was heading to a red carpet, not a small claims hearing, custom white suit, diamond watch you could see from the cheap seats, hair so polished it looked airbrushed. She didn't glance at the cameras. She didn't have to. She'd lived in front of them for 10 years. "This one is going to be good," someone whispered in the back row. Across from her, at the defendant's table, sat Rosa Alvarez. Late 40s, hands folded, hair pulled back in the no-nonsense bun of women who don't have time for mirrors. The cheap blouse she'd ironed twice this morning had a tiny tear at the cuff, hurriedly stitched. Her eyes never quite left the floor. On the paper in front of her, the case title glared back. Cross v. Alvarez claim, $48,000 damage to artwork. On TV, the announcer's voice had made it sound simple. In today's case, he'd boomed, a former celebrity nanny is accused of destroying a one-of-a-kind sculpture worth more than her annual salary. But is she really to blame? Or is her famous employer hiding something? In the actual room, nothing about it felt simple. Judge Helena Cole sat motionless on the bench, the kind of stillness that wasn't empty but charged. In front of her rested a single manila folder, thicker than most, tabbed neatly with colored flags. The cameras caught her fingers resting on it like the safety on a gun. "Miss Cross," she said, voice calm, "this is a court of law, not a press junket. You will answer my questions with respect, or we will have a very short, very unpleasant rest of the day for you, understood?" Vanessa gave a little laugh, that performative McFriendly sound millions of followers had clicked on daily. "Of course, Your Honor," she said smoothly. "I'm just saying context matters. I worked very hard for everything I have." She let that hang like a humble brag wrapped in victimhood. "Including," the judge said, glancing at the file, "the glass sculpture you say Miss Alvarez destroyed. You're claiming it was worth $48,000. "That's right," Vanessa said. "It was a commissioned piece, hand-blown, imported, signed by the artist, irreplaceable." She turned her head a fraction toward Rosa, and she smashed it. Rosa's fingers tightened on the edge of the table. Judge Cole looked at her. "Miss Alvarez," she said softly, "you were employed by Miss Cross?" "Yes, Your Honor," Rosa replied, accent gentle, "for 4 years. I was nanny, housekeeper, driver, everything." "And did you destroy this sculpture?" the judge asked. Rosa swallowed. "I was cleaning the shelf," she said, doing like always. "It slipped, it fell, it broke." "But so you admit it," Vanessa cut in, pouncing. "You broke it." "That's enough," the judge said sharply, not looking at Vanessa. "You'll get your turn." She turned back. "But," she prompted. Rosa exhaled. "But it was already cracked," she said. "From before. I told her. I told Miss Cross we should move it. It wasn't safe. She told me if you break it, you pay for it. So you continued cleaning it?" The judge asked. "Yes," Rosa said quietly, "because it is my job." Her eyes flickered up just for a second, meeting the judge's. There was something there, not defiance, not anger, fear, and something like shame for even being there. "Let me make sure I understand," Judge Cole said. "You told your employer the piece was damaged, suggested moving it. She refused, and when it eventually fell and shattered during routine cleaning, she fired you and sued you for $48,000. Rosa nodded once. Vanessa's laugh sliced the air. "Your Honor," she said, "you cannot let this turn into some melodramatic telenovela. She's lying. She was careless. And when I asked her to take responsibility, she cried and played poor." The low rumble from the audience said everything. Judge Cole's eyes shifted, not up, not down, just harder. "Miss Cross," she said slowly, "in my courtroom, nobody plays poor. They either have money or they don't. Right now, the only thing you're playing is yourself." A little ripple of laughter escaped the back row, swallowed quickly when the bailiff shot them a look. Vanessa's smile stiffened. "I understand you're used to everyone laughing with you," the judge continued. "Try to adjust to the idea they might be laughing at you today." Vanessa's jaw clenched for a fraction of a second. Then she lowered her head, composing her features like a ring light had just turned on. "May I continue, Your Honor?" she asked. "Yes," Judge Cole said, leaning back slightly. "Please, enlighten us. How did your former employee who, according to her file, was making $22 an hour end up responsible for an object you say cost more than twice her annual income?" Vanessa shrugged delicately. She knew where she worked, she said. "I have standards. I told her many times, if you cannot handle luxury, you don't belong around it." There it was, a single line that said more than any biography ever could. "You told her that?" The judge asked quietly. "Yes," Vanessa said, unbothered. "It's called accountability." "No," Judge Cole said. "It's called cruelty." Her hand slid barely to the edge of the manila folder, and somewhere in the control booth, a producer glanced at a colleague and whispered, "Here we go." Because what Vanessa Cross didn't know yet was very simple. She thought she'd come to court to make a poor woman pay for a broken sculpture. She didn't know the judge had already found something far more fragile, her entire public image, and unlike that glass artwork, this time, when it shattered, there would be no insurance to understand what was about to happen in that courtroom. You had to rewind 2 years, back before the lawsuit, back before the cameras, back when Rosa Alvarez had thought she'd landed the safest job in the world. She'd come to the country 18 years earlier with a suitcase, a toddler, and a promise from a cousin. "You can work with us. We'll get by. It'll get better." It had eventually, not all at once. She'd cleaned offices at night, watched other people's children during the day, cooked meals she couldn't afford to eat herself. Little by little, she'd pieced together something like stability. When a placement agency called her about a high-profile client, she'd been wary. "These people, they are on TV?" she'd asked. "Yes," the woman on the phone said, enthusiasm oozing. "But she's very generous, pays above market, needs a nanny house-cupper hybrid. It's a big opportunity." Rosa had hesitated. "Do they speak Spanish?" she asked. "My English is okay, but she's very inclusive," the agent said quickly. "She posts about diversity all the time." Rosa didn't know what posts about diversity meant. She did know what $28 an hour meant, so she went to the interview. The gate alone was taller than her old apartment building. The house, no, let's call it what it was. A mansion sat on a hill overlooking the city, all glass and angles, perfectly staged like a magazine spread. Inside, everything gleamed. White walls, white couches, white marble, not a speck of dust anywhere. It smelled like an expensive candle and fear of fingerprints. Vanessa had swept down the stairs in a silk robe, hair in a perfect messy bun that no human woke up with. "So," she'd said, looking Rosa up and down in one evaluating sweep, "you've worked for who exactly?" "Homes in Beverly Grove, Echo Park," Rosa had said, hands twisting in her lap. "I clean, I watch kids, I cook." "Any celebrity clients?" Vanessa had asked, half-bird. "No," Rosa said, "but children, they are the same, rich, poor, they need love." Something for just a second had flickered across Vanessa's face, then it was gone. "You'd be responsible for the twins," she'd said briskly. "School drop-off and pick-up, laundry, tidying, some light cooking. No red sauces in the living room, ever. That's non-negotiable. I travel a lot. You'd be here, reliable, quiet, discreet, understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Rosa had said. "I can do that. You'll sign an NDA," Vanessa had added. "Standard. What happens in this house does not end up on the internet, or in group chats, or anywhere. I have a brand to protect." Rosa had nodded. She wasn't interested in group chats. She was interested in paying rent. The first few months had been intense but manageable. The twins were sweet, noisy 6-year-olds who wanted to show her every drawing, every loose tooth, every stupid TikTok they weren't supposed to be scrolling. Mr. Cross drifted in and out, another handsome suit who smelled like expensive cologne and excuses. The house never felt like a home, more like a set. You don't touch the walls. You don't sit on that couch. You don't open that cabinet. Then there was the art. It was everywhere. Paintings that looked like angry rainbows. Sculptures that seemed designed to stab you if you breathed near them. Vases so thin they practically rattled when you walked by. The glass sculpture lived in the formal living room. It sat alone on a pedestal near the window, catching the light and fracturing it into 1,000 colors across the floor. A twisting tower of clear and blue and gold, delicate as spun sugar. The first day Rosa dusted it, her heart had pounded so loud she thought someone would hear. It should. I touch this? She'd asked the older housekeeper, Maritza, who'd trained her. Barely, Maritza had said. Just wipe the pedestal. You sare on the glass. It's insured, but she loves it. She? Rosa had asked. Vanessa, Maritza had said. Don't call her that to her face. It's always Miss Cross or ma'am, never Vanessa. Okay, Rosa had said. I will remember. She did. She remembered everything. What she didn't know then was that the sculpture had a history, not just as artwork, as a tool. 6 months into the job, late one evening, Rosa had been vacuuming when she heard the first crack. Not a big crash, a subtle, sinister tick, like ice splitting in a glass. She'd spun around. The sculpture stood where it always stood, but there, along one side, down near the base, a thin white line zigzagged through the glass. She'd unplugged the vacuum and inched closer, heart climbing into her throat. It was a crack, invisible unless you knew where to look. Definitely not nothing. The twins' soccer ball lay 10 feet away. One of them must have kicked too hard, or something had bumped during one of Vanessa's photo shoots. Either way, it was damaged. When Vanessa came in an hour later, full makeup, still wired from a live stream, Rosa had pointed. Miss Cross, she'd said carefully, the glass. It is broken. Maybe we should move it so it doesn't fall. Vanessa had frowned, bending down. Then, instead of panic, she'd smiled. Don't worry about it, she'd said. I'll take care of it. Rosa had relaxed. She thought take care of it meant call the artist, or an insurance agent, or at least move it off the edge. The next morning, the sculpture was in the same place, the crack a little worse. 3 days later, Vanessa had staged a photo shoot with it in the background for a new cross-home candle line. Don't clean in here until after, she'd told Rosa. If it's dusty, it looks more artistic. My back is not insurance, Maritza had whispered. In the kitchen, be careful. A month after that, Maritza had retired. No party, no farewell, just an email from Vanessa to staff, effective immediately. Elena will be assuming full household duties. The workload doubled. The anxiety tripled, and the crack in the glass kept marching up the sculpture like a slow, quiet threat, until the day it did end. It happened on a Tuesday morning. The twins were at school. Mr. Cross was in New York for meetings. Vanessa was upstairs filming a brand deal about self-care rituals for busy women. Rosa moved through the house like usual, laundry humming, dishes clinking, vacuum roaring. When she entered the formal living room, sunlight blazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, making the sculpture glow like it was lit from inside. She unplugged the vacuum to dust. Slow, she reminded herself, gentle. She wiped down the pedestal, careful, careful. Then, as she turned to go, the old vacuum cord, heavy, tangled, snagged against the base. There was that sound again. Tick. Then gravity took over. The sculpture wobbled, slow motion and lightning all at once. Rosa lunged, hand outstretched, mind screaming no, no, no. Her fingers brushed smooth glass. Not enough. The whole thing tipped. It hit the marble floor with a sound she would not forget if she lived to be 100. Not a crash, a shatter, like every choice she'd ever made had just exploded into glittering dust. For a moment she just stood there, breathing, staring at the shards. Then training and survival instincts kicked in. She grabbed the broom. Start picking up, biggest pieces first. Don't cut yourself, don't cry. Her hands shook. A few fragments sliced her fingers anyway. Blood dotted the marble. By the time Vanessa descended, the room no longer looked perfect. It looked honest. What happened? Vanessa's voice cut through the air. Rosa turned, swallowing hard. I'm so sorry, she said instantly. The base. It was loose? The crack, you broke it? Vanessa demanded, eyes wide. The cord, Rosa said helplessly. It got stuck. I tried to catch. You broke it, Vanessa repeated, voice suddenly icy. Yes, Rosa whispered, but it was already. Do you have any idea what that was worth? Vanessa snapped, stalking closer. Of course you don't. That's more than you'll make in 5 years. I told you we should move it, Rosa said, desperation creeping in. I told you, many times. Oh, so this is my fault now. Vanessa laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Of course, poor little Rosa, always the victim. I didn't say you don't say, Vanessa cut in. You do, you break, you destroy, and then you cry. She took a deep breath. Get out, she said. Rosa blinked. Miss Cross out, Vanessa said. You're fired. I'll have HR send you your NDA reminder. Don't even think about talking to anyone about this. You don't get to break my things. And then damage my reputation too. She spun away, pulling out her phone. Mark, she said, already in PR mode. We need to talk about the cross-life insurance policy. Rosa stood there for a second, broom still in her hand. Then slowly she finished sweeping, because the reflex to clean up other people's messes was older than any job. She left that house that afternoon with no paycheck, no severance, and the sinking feeling it wasn't over. She was right. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Cross. V. Alvarezmo claims notice. She'd been sued for $48,000. She almost threw it away. How do you fight someone whose earrings cost more than your car? Then her son, Miguel, a nursing student with too much homework and not enough patience for his mother's silence. Read it. This isn't right, he said. She's rich. She has insurance. Why is she coming after you? Because she can, Rosa said softly. Miguel typed TV court shows sue employer into his phone out of sheer frustration. One application form later, Rosa's story landed in the inbox of a producer who'd already seen Vanessa Cross's name before, twice. Once in a lost luggage claim versus an airline. Once in a water damage ruined my wardrobe case that had quietly settled before taping. Something smelled familiar. Judy's team pulled Vanessa's civil case history. 10 lawsuits in 3 years. Broken floors. Scratched cars. Faulty designer goods. Always someone else's fault. Always. An invoice, always a payout. When Vanessa herself agreed to appear, seeing it as content and a chance to show fans what really happens when you steal from me, the producers knew what they had. A rich bully, a quiet worker, and a judge with no patience for either lies or fake victim tears. They just needed the proof. That's when the email came in from Dechen Glassworks Restoration. I've done repair work for Miss Cross before, it read. That sculpture? It was cracked months ago. She asked me if she could make a claim instead of paying me. I refused. I have the messages. Now in the courtroom, Judge Helena had those messages, neatly printed, flagged in blue, resting in that fat folder in front of her, and she was about to use them, gently, like a demolition expert. Miss Cross, Judge Helena said, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the file. You submitted this invoice as evidence of the sculpture's value, correct? Vanessa tossed her hair. Yes, she said. It's from the original gallery. You can call them. Oh, I did, the judge said. We'll get to that. For now, I want to talk about this. She held the paper up on screen for viewers at home. The image zoomed in. Cross-life residence damage report item. Custom glass sculpture estimated value. 48000 in the middle of the page. The 8 in 48000 looked darker, heavier, like it had been written twice, once in black, once traced over in blue. Vanessa's lawyer, a man who'd been trying very, very hard to look like this was going his way, shifted uneasily. You recognize your own handwriting, Miss Cross? The judge asked. It's my assistant's, Vanessa said smoothly. She fills these out. I sign them. Ah, yes, Judge Helena said. Miss Feldman. She's in the gallery today, isn't she? The camera found a slim young woman in the second row, shoulders hunched, eyes wide. She shrank a little when the lens hit her. You understand you're under oath as well? The judge said, not unkindly. Even from there, false statements made through documents can carry the same consequences. Monica, no, in this story. Donnie Feldman nodded almost imperceptibly. Vanessa shot her a look. We're wasting time, she said. The fact is, my employee broke an expensive piece. I'm entitled to damages. This isn't rocket science. No, Judy said. Rocket science is easier to fake. A few chuckles rippled before dying under the bailiff's stare. Let's talk about timing, Helena continued, flipping to another page. Miss Alvarez. When did the sculpture break? Last October, Rosa said quietly. The 10th, it was raining. And when did you first notice the crack? The judge asked. In August, Rosa said. Before school started. I remember because the twins were trying their uniforms. Judge Cole nodded. Now, she said, turning back to Vanessa, this email from Dechen at Westside Glassworks is dated September 3rd. He says, per your request, I examined the glass piece in your living room. There is an existing crack near the base. I recommend moving it before it fails. She looked up. Did you receive this email? Vanessa's lips thinned. I get hundreds of emails, she said. I can't recall. Every Miss Feldman forwarded it to your personal account, the judge said, tapping another page with the note, should we start an insurance claim? You responded, wait until something happens, then it's not our problem. The room went dead silent. Vanessa's face flushed faintly under her makeup. That's taken out of context, she said. Obviously I meant if it did fall, then it's not our problem, the judge repeated. Your words, not hers. It's how people talk about insurance, Vanessa protested. Everybody knows most people don't try to engineer the something first, Helena snapped. Did you move the sculpture after the crack was found? No, Vanessa admitted. It was fine. Did you warn your staff? The judge pressed, put up a sign. Rope it off? Anything? No, Vanessa said again, jaw tight. So you left a cracked Tafivi 48,000 glass tower in a high-traffic area and told a woman who cleans your floors to dust around it and be careful, Helena said. Then when it finally landed where every law of physics said it would, you called yourself the victim. That's her job, Vanessa shot back too. Be careful. It's your job, the judge said coldly, not to turn your house into an obstacle course of lawsuits waiting to happen. She slid the emails aside, revealing another sheet. Now, she said, let's address the elephant in the room. You're claiming the piece was worth $48,000. The gallery owner, however, tells a different story. She picked up a document with a letterhead, West Coast Contemporary Gallery. In this statement, the judge read, the gallery owner says, quote, the original purchase price for the cross sculpture was $18,000. A subsequent insurance appraisal done 2 years later, at Miss Cross's request, valued it at $22,000 due to comparable sales. I have never provided a valuation of $48,000 for this piece, end quote. The audience let out a soft, shocked sound like a collective woe. Vanessa's lawyer shifted again. Appraisals fluctuate, Vanessa protested. Art is subjective. So is your honesty, Helena replied. But we deal in evidence. She held up the invoice. The 4 in 4800 started life as a 2, she said. It's been altered badly. Did you change this figure, Miss Cross? Vanessa's mouth opened. This is absurd, she said. Why would I risk my reputation over $26,000? Because your pattern says you risk a lot over much less, the judge said quietly. She slid several smaller documents into view. Lost luggage, she said, reading off. Scratched rental cars. Damaged couture at hotels. In each, the initial claimed amount grew between the first estimate and the final sworn figure. Always in your favor. Always with your assistant's handwriting hovering near the numbers. She let that sink in. This isn't about one sculpture, she said. This is about a lifestyle of treating other people's money, insurance companies, staff, contractors as your personal refill station. Vanessa's smile finally cracked. You're making me sound like some criminal, she snapped. I pay more in taxes than anyone in this room makes. I donate more. Do not confuse philanthropy with penance, Helena cut in. One doesn't cancel out the other. She glanced at Donnie. Miss Feldman, she said. Stand up, please. Donnie jolted as if shocked. I'm just staff, she stammered. You're a witness, the judge replied. Did you ever alter numbers on Miss Cross's claim forms at her instruction? Donnie looked at Vanessa. Vanessa's eyes shot a very clear message. Don't. Donnie's shoulders sagged. Yes, she whispered. She told me it was standard practice. That all rich people do it. That did it. The audience murmured, low but electric. The judge's face didn't show triumph. It showed something closer to disappointment. Miss Cross, she said at last, you walked into this courtroom thinking it was your next storyline, a chance to show the world what happens when the help breaks your toys. Instead, what you've shown them is what happens when entitlement meets documentation. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I can fix this, she said suddenly, voice rising. I'll pay her. I'll donate. We don't need to turn this into you don't get to buy your way out of a record, Helena said. And you certainly don't get to buy me. And that one sentence, that small push is what finally pulled the pin. Vanessa laughed, not her performative giggle, a harsh, ugly sound. Oh, please, she said, eyes blazing. I could pay your salary for the next 10 years without even blinking. This entire show exists because people like me agreed to show up. You think you scare me? I built women like you for brand campaigns. The room froze. The bailiff's hand twitched. Rosa's hands clenched white knuckle on the table. Judge Helena didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Sit down, she said, each syllable landing like a dropped brick. Before you say something that costs you a lot more than this claim. Vanessa opened her mouth. Then, for the first time that day, she did something wise. She shut it. But it's already too late, the narrator in the control room muttered, watching the live feed, because the judge's hand had finally fully come down on that manila folder. And now, it was time for the part Vanessa always edited out of her own videos. Consequences. Miss Cross, Judge Helena said, opening the folder fully for the first time. This case started as a question of whether your former employee owed you $48,000 for a broken sculpture. It has become something much larger. She pulled out a new document. Let's start small, she said. Miss Alvarez's final paycheck. Rosa looked up, startled. Miss Alvarez, Helena said, did you receive your last wages when you were fired? No, Your Honor, Rosa said. They say it is on hold until I pay for the sculpture. That's illegal, the judge said flatly. You do not get to withhold wages as leverage for a civil debt that doesn't even exist. She flipped the check stub toward Vanessa's side. This, she said, for $1,320 belongs to her, not to your pride. Fine, Vanessa said quickly. She can have it. This is ridiculous. We don't need— Oh, we're not even close to need, Helena said. We're at minimum. She pulled out another set of pages. Next, she said, is Cross Life Media, Inc.'s employee pension account, 8 names on the roster, 22 deposits over 5 years, and then, suddenly, a series of temporary transfers into your personal investment account, totaling around $210,000. The audience noise rose again, a wave of disbelief. Vanessa's face drained of color. That is my money, she snapped. I built that company. Those employees were promised retirement contributions as part of their compensation. The judge cut in. You don't get to borrow from their future without consent because your latest launch flopped. How do you even— Vanessa began. Public records, whistleblowers, people you thought would never talk, Helena said. Turns out, when you treat everyone around you like disposable props, eventually one of them decides not to be. Donnie stared down at her hands. Rosa stared at the floor. Vanessa's hands curled into fists. You have no idea what pressure looks like, she hissed. Brand deals, payroll, mortgages, expectations. Everyone in this room has pressure, Helena replied. The difference is most of them don't solve it by stealing from the people beneath them. She took a breath. Her next words weren't angry. They were tired. I have seen a lot of ugly in my years on the bench, she said. Abusers, thieves, liars. But there's a special place in my gut reserved for people who hide selfishness behind success and call exploitation standards. She turned to Rosa. Miss Alvarez, she said, voice softening again. You did not break that sculpture. It was broken long before you touched it, by negligence, by greed, by a woman who saw your hands as tools, not as part of a person. She straightened. Here is my ruling, she said. The room seemed to lean forward as one, as two. Miss Cross's claim, Helena said, denied. She has not met her burden of proof. The value is inflated. The damage was foreseeable. And her own emails show she treated this like a lottery ticket waiting to be scratched. Vanessa flinched. As to Miss Alvarez's countersuit, the judge continued, I find in her favor. Miss Cross, you will pay her withheld wages of $1,320, plus an additional $8,400 in damages, the amount you attempted to wring from her as a very small corrective to the financial and emotional harm you've caused. Rosa covered her mouth. With one hand, eyes overflowing, she shook her head once, almost in disbelief. And that, Helena said, is just the civil side. She lifted the thicker stack of papers. These documents, she said, will be transmitted to the district attorney's office and the state insurance fraud division. They will be very interested in your pattern of claims, your altered invoices, and your pension transfers. Vanessa, for once, had no comeback. She stared at the folder like it was a bomb. Because for her it was. Let me be perfectly clear, Helena said. This courtroom doesn't send people to prison, but it can and will shine a very bright light on behavior that belongs in a different kind of courtroom entirely. She paused, then added, more quietly, and no number of followers, brand deals, or diamond watches will matter there. She picked up the gavel. Case dismissed as to the plaintiff, she said. Judgment for the defendant on the counterclaim. We're done. The gavel cracked. The sound echoed. Then came the other sound, the one Vanessa had always thought was For her, applause, not thunderous, not sitcom canned, but real, small earned for Rosa. She stood there, stunned, until the bailiff touched her elbow gently. "You're free to go, ma'am," he said. She turned to Vanessa. Their eyes met. In that split second, Rosa didn't look like the help. She looked like the only adult in the room. "I forgive you," she blurted, the words surprising even herself. Vanessa flinched like she'd been slapped. "You what?" She choked. "I forgive you," Rosa repeated, voice shaking, "because if I don't, then you still own something of mine, and today I want to leave with everything back." She picked up her worn purse, her envelope thicker now, and walked out. No cameras followed her into the hallway. They stayed on Vanessa, on her cracked eyeliner, on the perfect suit that suddenly looked like a costume, on the bracelet that still sparkled even as her world dimmed. Within days of the episode airing, the internet did what the internet does. Clips of "when you can afford my shoes" next to "you can't even afford your own lawyer" went viral. Her followers split. Some defended her. Most didn't. Brands called their PR teams. "Is it worth the risk?" they asked. A few contracts were mutually dissolved. A few employees saw the news about the pension transfers and called lawyers of their own. The district attorney's office did in fact open an inquiry. Months later, the glossy Crosslife mansion on the hill hit the market. Motivated seller, the listing read, "back in a quieter part of town." Rosa used her settlement to pay off medical bills, fix the leaking roof in her apartment, and after years of cleaning other people's homes, put a down payment on a tiny, aging condo of her own. It didn't have a glass sculpture. It had crayons on the floor, photos on crooked nails, a plant on the windowsill. Sometimes when the sun hit it just right, the cheap glass vase would throw little rainbows on the wall. She'd smile, then get back to her work. Some nights, reruns of the show would play in the background while she cooked. If that episode came on, she'd turn the volume down low, not needing to hear it again. She'd heard it once swear. It mattered. In that room where a woman with a gavel had said, in front of the whole world, "You are not disposable. You are not a prop. You are not what she says you are." And for every person who'd ever been told, "You don't belong around nice things," watching a rich bully finally get told, "You don't belong above the law," felt like something rare, a kind of justice you don't often see in real life, the kind you rewind, the kind you share, the kind you remember the next time someone with money and a smile says, "People like you should know your place."